views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I'm Daren, Jaime. And if you're asking the question, what is the Social Justice Forums all about? Well, we bring you a forum discussing a deeper understanding of the issues that many people face, the inequities that they deal with, as well as presenting multiple points of view, and then promoting civic engagement. So stay tuned, because the Social Justice Forums starts right now. And welcome back. Freedom Agenda is a member-led project dedicated to community organizing to drive systemic decarceration and transformation of the criminal legal system, launched at the Urban Justice Center. Freedom Agenda's vision is centered to transform communities historically disrupted by systems of punishment and structural racism through policy shifting. Freedom Agenda advocates for critical investments such as housing, treatment, education, and employment, which are basic necessities for all New Yorkers. This in tandem with the push for the urgent closure of the notorious Rikers Island jail complex, which has repeatedly ignored the rights and humane treatment of incarcerated people. Joining us now to share a little bit more is the co-director of Freedom Agenda. I'm pleased to be joined by Daren Mack. And Darren, good to have you here on the Social Justice Forum.
Thank you for having me, Darren.
It's not often I get a chance to talk to somebody named Darren, so it's really going to be cool. So thank you so much. Listen, for people who don't know about the Freedom Agenda, I wanted to take a little bit of an open up by letting you share a little bit about the work that you guys do. I gave an intro, but tell us a little bit more in depth.
Yes, so Freedom Agenda, like you mentioned, is a member-led project. Our members who are formerly incarcerated, members of the community, like the South Bronx, Bronxville, South Jamaica, Queens, who are impacted by mass criminalization and incarceration in New York City, including myself. I was formerly incarcerated. I spent 19 months on Rikers Island when the population was over 20,000 people incarcerated there. And ultimately, I served approximately 20 years in the prison system. So Freedom Agenda came together as a continuation of the work to close the last penal colony in the United States and what is more commonly known as Rikers Island. And we do this through, as you mentioned, policy change, through decarceration, defending the human rights of incarcerated people, especially in this COVID-19 moment, and divesting from the carceral system and redistributing those resources back into the communities that's been harmed by mass incarceration and racism in our city.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more closely about Rikers Island. I mean, a lot of people have comments about Rikers Island, a lot of concerns, but from your perspective, talk to us about how you see Rikers Island and the challenges it actually causes.
Yeah, so Rikers Island, I find a lot of people actually, I come across who, New Yorkers don't really know too much. They think Rikers Island is a prison when it's actually a jail complex with 10 jail facilities on the island. I always say that it's the last penal colony because unlike anywhere in this country, Alcatraz, which is in California, closed decades ago in the 60s. McNeil Island, which was probably one of the last penal colony to close in the 2000s. Rikers Island is the last penal colony where it's a jail complex that is isolated away from from the boroughs. It's an island in of itself. And one of the things that some of the challenges is that there's been attempts to close Rikers Island in the past, but it's always been a top down. But for the first time in the last 5 years of my advocacy and organizing in the movement to close Rikers Island, it's been a bottom up. It's been actually centering the people, the survivors of Rikers Island, and telling the city why the Rikers need to be closed, not later, but as soon as possible. So I think that was one of the key differences in regards to shutting down what I also call the Abu Ghraib of New York City, because it's coming from people who actually experience the horrors and the trauma of Rikers Island, leading this movement in order to, and to the end this this place, which is a stain on our city.
Darren, talk to me about Rikers Island on the inside. What is it that we don't get to see that really maybe the public isn't familiar with? Because as you said, some people didn't even know Rikers Island exactly existed, and there's 10 jails on the complex. If they don't know that, they're not really too familiar with what goes on indoors. So take us with the walk indoors. What have you found from both inmates and also staff when it comes to Rikers Island?
Yeah, so like one of the things that always come to mind is like on the streets, especially during this Black Lives Matter movement, we've seen like a lot of the brutality that comes from agents of the system, in this case, cops, where people actually capturing videotape of the brutality and abuse and murders on videotape in the streets when it comes to agents of the system inflicting brutality and harm to civilians. So on Rikers Island, you don't see that. People can't just pull out their phone and record a brutality. And as someone who experienced it when Rikers Island was not on the spotlight in the media, you know, I can tell you that it happens every day. You know, Martin Luther King said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And every day, people are being brutalized. Every day, like within this last year, already 4 people have actually died in the custody on Rikers Island. We all know the story about Khalif Browder. We all know about Lady Polanco, you know, a young transgender woman who died in her cell in solitary confinement. So these things we don't see, you know, because, you know, unfortunately, the people who manage and control Rikers Island don't leak this information out to the public, and people just can't walk in and record this. So that's why, as people who survived it knows that brutality and trauma and punishment is happening every single day for those people who are detained on Rikers Island. And the majority of people who are detained on Rikers Island, they are there majority because they can't afford to pay a bail, you know? So that's a situation, and that's something that we try to highlight and share our experiences. And the only solution for Rikers Island is to shut it down, to close it.
Yeah. And so we know that there are plans to really close it down. Talk to us about where things stand right now, and are you satisfied?
Yeah, so there needs to be improvements on the city's plan. Like right now, the city made a public commitment to close Rikers Island down by the end of 2026, you know, so by 2027, Rikers Island should be known to close. And at the same time, for those who continue to be detained in the system, you know, because if you close Rikers Island today, you know, people say where they're gonna go. You know, they're not gonna just go home. For those who continue to be detained in the system, Freedom Agenda believes that we have to address the conditions of the facilities that's in the boroughs. I think the Queens House been closed for years now. Brooklyn House closed last year. So all you have left is the Tombs in Manhattan, the Manhattan Detention Center, and the Boat, which is adjacent to the Bronx. So it's like approximately a little over 4,000 people in the system. And it's only like, so these 2 facilities, the Bronx, which is the Boat, and the Manhattan facility, only is less than 2,000 beds. So we're not gonna put 4,000 people in 2 facilities that's only has a capacity for 2,000, you know, beds. So what was brought to the table was a borough-based plan to, you know, demolish all 14 facilities throughout the city. That means the 10 jails on Rikers Island, the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, and just go down from 14 down to 4 facilities. You know, when it's renovated, where you create programming space, where you have space, you know, for visitors, you have space for different services. So that's a plan that the city put forward, and we pushed to even improve, and we're going to continue to improve, push in order to improve, because we going from, like, when I was right, because it was 20,000 people there. So we going from right now about 17,000 beds in the system down to 3,300 beds. And so that's our plan, and we believe that we could probably bring it down even less.
Mhm. We're hearing a lot about renewable Rikers, and that's a program that's out there right now, looking at how to make Rikers Island a place of improvement going forward in the future. Give us a little bit about renewable Rikers and your thoughts.
Yeah, so renewable Rikers is a vision that people who've been impacted by Rikers Island believe that you could, once we close Rikers Island, that there's peaker plants all through across the city. Most of these peaker plants are in low income and communities of color. And these peaker plants are a certain amount of energy. The peaker plants kicks in to keep this energy going. And these peaker plants also exhume a lot of toxicity into the atmosphere. That's probably why they're located in low income communities of color anyway. So the renewable Rikers vision is to get rid of all the peaker plants across the city, including the water treatment centers across the city, and then make Rikers Island into green, sustainable energy, that will power the city, and that would create green jobs. That would get rid of a lot of toxicity, that these peaker plants exhume. Also, these peaker plants takes up like large amounts of space, like big city blocks. That will free up space, for communities to, like, if they want to build parks or affordable housing. So the Renewables Rikers Act, which is legislation that's active right now, one of the legislative bills will remove the ownership and control of Rikers Island out of the hands of the Department of Corrections and into the hands of the Department of Environmental Protection. So that's one of the things that Freedom Agenda is pushing, along with organizational partners and environmentalists across the city. And that's where, the vision of Rikers Island that we see going forward.
Yeah, you got active legislation that's out there in regards to this, and then some. Give our viewers a little bit about the active legislation that you're pushing for with regards to Rikers, and then some.
Yeah, so there's so many, like, I like to describe this, the carceral system is like an octopus with a lot of tentacles. You have people on Rikers Island who are incarcerated there because, they've been violated for parole technicality. They've been violated, they violated parole on a technical, violation, and because they came home instead of 9 o'clock curfew, they was there 9:01 or 9:05. So you have people that's on Rikers Island with that, and there's an active bill right now that's out there called Less is More, which will actually end the incarceration of people for technical violations, and that will free up literally thousands of people across New York State, and it would impact Rikers Island as well. And so that's just one of the many pieces of legislation. The Renewable Rikers Act, which is a trio of bills that I mentioned earlier, and yeah, so those two are kind of like two of the bills that we're focusing on right now.
Yeah. I know that when it talks about mass incarceration, the criminal justice system, Michelle Alexander wrote the book, The New Jim Crow. Give us a little bit about your perspective on the Jim Crow, because I hear it, I understand it, I internalize it, but some of us still are in the fog. And so there's a question about how we can tackle this new Jim Crow.
Yeah, so there are literally thousands of laws across our country that legally discriminates against people who have a criminal conviction, especially a felony conviction. Like for instance, we're in a voting season right now. There are states in our country that actually that disallows you or criminalizes you for voting. So you lose your right to vote for the rest of your life because you have a felony conviction. And we have over 20 million people in our country that have a felony conviction. Over 70 million people in our country who have a conviction, whether it's a misdemeanor or felony altogether. So the new Jim Crow are like laws that actually target people to disempower people, like voting, like getting a driver's license, like getting certain like becoming a firefighter. Like in California, you had at one time, I think the law was passed this year, but for years, incarcerated people were being trained to put out fire and risking their lives for like $1 an hour But when they come home, they couldn't become a fireman because they had a felony conviction. And this is part of the thousands of laws that, that we basically call as part of the new Jim Crow. It marginalizes people, who are formerly incarcerated from different sectors of the job market or licenses market. And so that's like just an extension of the old Jim Crow.
Yeah. Well, without certain things, it always leads to recidivism, right? If you don't have the necessary resources, if you don't have the help coming out of incarceration, the recidivism rate always continues to go higher because that's just the fact. People who come out of prison, they want to find jobs, they want to find resources, but yet and still it becomes very hard for a lot of people on the side of incarceration. Talk to me about you as you transition from incarceration into society, back into society, doing great and productive things. How receiving and how accommodating was the public towards you coming on out?
Yeah, so I think like my personal experience, I had a lot of support from the inside, and I had support on the outside. But my preparation on the inside basically helped me navigate through a lot of the obstacles on the outside. I'm a graduate of a program called the Bar Prison Initiative, which is a college higher education college and prison program that offers associate's and bachelor degrees to men and women in New York State. And they had a re-entry department that once I knew that I was going to be released, that okay, where you going to live? Okay, let's put your resumes together. If you're gonna continue in school, like we're gonna get all these things in place. So when I'm released, that I have a place to go. I have my resume. I have like different, connected to different resources in my transition back into society. And so for me, I was blessed to have these different supports to help me navigate through that. But for so many people, they left, communities that lack the resources and lack the support. And then to return back to those communities that still don't have those resources and support, I think there's a gap there that cities and states need to fund and in order for people to have a really smooth transition. Because right now, I would say almost 50% of the people who are released, recidivist, are reincarcerated within 3 years. So that says something about the Department of Correction. Like they reckon if my business was doing that bad, I wouldn't be in business no more. So I think we need to really be thinking about doing things differently and listening to directly impact people to come up with solutions, because I've had some level of success and I could contribute to policies and programs that could help others, achieve a certain level of success as well.
Before we go, please allow our viewers an opportunity. If they want to partner with the Freedom Agenda, how do they get connected and what do they do?
Yes, so you can go to email us at fa.urbanjustice.org, and you could if you interested in doing work around decarceration or divesting from systems of punishment and investing in impact communities, doing advocacy and organizing around that, or you contact me at dmack@urbanjustice.org, and I definitely would love to collaborate because it's going to take a broad coalition of activists, advocates, and organizers to see a better future for our city and state.
Darren, Mack, gotta leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, brother, and it's great to see the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty, Darren Mack, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum. We still have more show. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. The Social Justice Forum will continue right after this.
Listen up, Bronxites. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Are you safely hitting the polls for in-person voting? Or are you voting absentee by mailing in your ballot? New York offers absentee ballots by mail to voters who will be unable to vote in person for any reason. Absentee voting can be confusing, but it's safe and has become more common during coronavirus due to fears of crowding when voting at poll sites. How can you get an absentee ballot? Glad you asked. First, did you register to vote by October 9th? If so, you're eligible to request an absentee ballot no later than October 27th. You can request an absentee ballot online at nycabsentee.com or first download an application at elections.ny.gov. Then you can fill out that application and do one of the following. Email your application to apply for absentee at boe.nyc or fax to 212-487-5349. Or mail it to the Bronx Board of Elections office located at 1780 Grand Concourse on the 5th floor, Bronx, New York 10457. Or you can request your absentee ballot by calling 1-866-VOTE-NYC. That's 1-866-868-3692. Once you receive your absentee ballot, it's time to vote. According to the Board of Elections, your absentee may say official absentee military ballot in the top corner. But don't worry, this is the correct ballot, even if you're not serving in the military. In the primary elections, more than 500,000 ballots were rejected and discarded due to human error. So before you start filling in your ballot, make sure to keep the following in mind. Fill in your bubble selections with a blue or black ink pen only. Never mark any X's or check marks as opposed to filling these bubbles in. This can absolutely disqualify your ballot. Don't forget to sign and date the back of the ballot envelope and make sure that that signature matches your own. And finally, mail your absentee ballot before the deadline, November 3rd. You can also drop it off in person at an early voting poll site between October 24th and November 1st, at a poll site on Election Day, November 3rd by 9 p.m., or at the Bronx County Board of Elections office no later than November 3rd by 9 p.m. If you miss any of these guidelines, your ballot may be automatically discarded. So please stay informed, stay safe, and most importantly, make sure you mail your absentee ballot or wear a mask, remain 6 feet apart, and safely head out to the polls to have your vote count and your voice heard.
And welcome back to the show. Robin Hood is New York City's largest poverty-fighting organization. For over 30 years, they found, fueling, and creating the most impactful and scalable solutions to lift families out of poverty in New York City. They partner with over 250 not-for-profits to support food, housing, education, legal services, workforce development, and much more to New Yorkers who are living in poverty across New York City's 5 boroughs. Robin Hood recently announced the Power Fund's inaugural cohort of Power Fund leaders who share Robin Hood's mission of increasing mobility from poverty. The Power Fund is a new initiative to fund and elevate nonprofit leaders of color who share in Robin Hood's mission of increasing mobility from poverty while addressing the interplay of racial justice and economic justice through their work. Here now to provide more information about Robin Hood is the Chief Partnerships and Impact Officer of Robin Hood, Samantha Tweedy. We're also joined by the co-founder and CEO at America on Tech, Jessica Santana, and then the co-founder and president at America on Tech, Evin Robinson, and we welcome you all to the show. I want to ask the question, if you will, share with me, and I think I'll start with Samantha. When we talk about poverty in New York City, I know that it's a big issue, and talk about your work in the fight against poverty.
Absolutely. So first, just thank you so much for having us here today. Thrilled to share a little bit about Robin Hood's work and then also our new initiative, the Power Fund. As you shared, Robin Hood has been supporting organizations across New York City for over 3 decades, looking for those organizations that are most effective at addressing poverty's causes and poverty's consequences. And in everything we do, we're driven by the data and the research to make sure that we're landing on those solutions that are most effective. And the research really had red flashing alarm lights around a really troubling fact. It's actually almost hard to believe, but over the past 2 decades, while philanthropic giving across the board has skyrocketed, gone up by about 400%, philanthropic giving to organizations led by leaders of color has stayed flat at just 10%. Now, not only is this just yet more evidence of the systemic racism that plagues our country, it also just doesn't make sense, right? Philanthropy is in the business of solving problems. So for Robin Hood, that's fighting poverty. And what we know is that it's leaders who have the expertise and the perspective that comes from being of the communities they're serving who are going to drive those solutions. If you've lived it, you know it. And leaders of color with the right level of investment and support, we know are going to bring about the most change in the poverty fight, yes, and across the board. And so through the Power Fund, we're making this concerted effort to identify and to fund and to invest in organizations who are led by people of color and in the leaders themselves. And that's why I'm so thrilled not only to have announced our first group of Power Fund leaders just last week, but also to be joined by Jessica and Evin today, who are two of those tremendous leaders.
Yeah. And so Jessica, Evin, the opportunity to talk to you for a quick second. Talk to us, and I'll start first with ladies first, Jessica, about your involvement.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share about our work at America on Tech, but also really happy to be here representing the inaugural class of leaders that are representative of the Robin Hood Foundation's Power Fund. America on Tech is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to decrease the economic and racial wealth gap in underestimated communities by creating pathways to degrees and/or careers in technology for students. We do this work by providing tuition-free technology education, training, internships, and job placement into really high-paying and high growth growth careers in the technology industry. I myself am from Brooklyn, New York, and really excited to say that, even though we're on BronxNet, but very excited.
It's okay.
Be very excited to be representative of the first class of leaders for the Robin Hood Foundation, and happy to continue doing the work that we're doing at America on Tech.
Mm-hmm. Evin, a little bit about you.
And pretty much similar as Jessica Santana. Jessica Santana's co-partner, co-founder, Evin Floyd Robinson. I'm also a fellow Brooklynite. And similar to Jessica, we went through the public school system in New York City, K through 12. First in our family to go off to, in our immediate families to go off to college. And then after college, we both went into the technology industry where we worked prior to starting America on Tech. And America on Tech was basically funded out of a call to action to really, provide technical education, professional development, mentorship, but most importantly, job placement and new wages for the students that we're serving throughout New York City.
Yeah. And so as you talk about these initiatives that you've got going on, I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the initiatives to fight against poverty, right? Because those are huge and poverty is big. And as we continue to see after COVID, these numbers are going to continue to rise. I mean, I think if we had a problem before, it literally looks like we're going to have even more of a problem. But you guys are really trying to grab the bull by the horns here and address some initiatives to actually deal with the fight against poverty. So take a moment and share.
Absolutely. So exactly as you said, things before COVID were already stark. So Robin Hood runs a data study with Columbia University called the Poverty Tracker that studies families over time. And what the Poverty Tracker data told us before COVID was that almost 50% of New Yorkers have experienced poverty over the last 4 years, almost 50% in a city that is deemed one of the wealthiest in the world. And so what that tells us is that the solutions that we're looking for have to be solutions that are going to make long-term change, that are not just going to get families right over the line, but that are going to get families in a place where they're able to stay out of poverty. And with COVID, we've seen that exacerbated. And again, COVID, which was so often hailed at the beginning as the great equalizer, right? The pandemic that was hitting us all, we saw that that has been completely untrue, that Black and Latinx New Yorkers across the country are dying at twice the rate. And when we look at the economic impacts, we're seeing that while unemployment rates are high for all, the projections show that for Black New Yorkers, for example, they're 10% higher. And so the kind of poverty solutions that we want to invest in are those that are going to make the difference for the long run. And for us, that means that we're making sure we're taking race into account. You can't fight poverty and be colorblind. The solutions that we know work, for example, a college degree, which is so often heralded as that golden ticket, sure, it increases lifetime earnings by $1 million. But what we also know is that that is not the case, depending on what racial background you are, that we see that folks who are white, who are looking for employment are oftentimes able to get the same jobs being recently released from prison as Black Americans with no criminal justice history. And so what we're really seeking to do with the Power Fund, but across the board, is make sure that we're thinking about that interplay of racial injustice and economic injustice in our work and in the work of the organizations we fund. We think that America on Tech is just such a key example of that, because we know that those will be the solutions that work for communities and work for communities for the long run.
And so Evin and Jessica, talk to me about being a part of an organization that, listen, you're minorities and you're leading, the importance of leading in a time like this, and the importance of having minorities lead at a time like this.
I think it's really important for us to understand that laws, a lot of times when you look at programs and products and services that are being developed to solve root causes of poverty, a lot of times the folks who are at that table are not representative of the communities that they're trying to serve. And I think we're at a time where we're seeing how much of disadvantage that is. And as a result of that, I think that what there's a lot of power in being from the community, being representative of the community, and then also designing with the community in the process of developing programs like ours. America on Tech is an organization that recognizes that computing and technology jobs are the #1 sources of wages in the United States. And we also recognize that Blacks and Latinos specifically are severely left out of spaces of innovation. As someone who is from Brooklyn, New York, who transitions from the public school system, who was first generation in her family to graduate from school, get a job in technology, I know what it's like, and I know what the trials and tribulations I personally needed to face in order to get to that point in my career where I was able to obtain a high-paying job in the industry. And as a result of that, when we're thinking about the products and the programs and the solutions that we're developing at America on Tech, I can hone in uniquely on the things that make my experiences authentic in a way that creates an intersectional experience for students that merges strong career development, that merges tech skills development, but also takes into account who they are as people, the identities that they come with, and also the challenges that they face.
So I think Jessica hit the answer right on the head. Essentially, Jessica and I live by a model of we were once the students we now serve. And this really comes from a real life lived experience of us being similar to the students that we now work with. We went through the public school system, we navigated going through the public school system to college, and then ultimately into the technology industry. So a lot of the decisions that we make are not only sourced through industry knowledge, but also lived experiences that Jessica and I went through firsthand growing up in New York City.
Samantha, talk to me about this, because here you have this great organization that you're able to fund and really be able to assist to get to the next level. But I think we talked about a little bit earlier that when it comes to, communities of color, when it comes to the philanthropic dollar, it doesn't always hit. How do you feel like this is going to make it such a difference with community impact?
Absolutely. So I think it's really two things. The first is just recognizing that leadership matters. If we want to drive systemic change, it's about investing in who's at the table, who's making decisions, and making sure that we're setting folks up to do that for the long run. So that while this Robin Hood investment is in America on Tech, it's also in Jessica and Evin, who, as you've seen today, are not only phenomenally leading their organization, but are already phenomenally leading their communities, and we know will for decades to come. The second piece is about being really open and transparent for all of us about the evolution that we're going through so that we can all learn and change together. This philanthropic data isn't about one institution. It's not about one foundation. It's not just about Robin Hood. It's about a sector. And let's be real, it's reflective of our country. And so the more that all of us are able to lean in this moment of long overdue national reckoning around racial injustice to make the kind of change that we are going to, in partnership, be able to drive for the long run is what's going to make the difference, I think, for communities for good.
And Evin, Jessica, talk to me about this, having, the support, having somebody actually seed and sow into your business and your vision. What does it mean to be able to have that extra push, to have that philanthropic edge and support that sometimes, as we say, doesn't always happen, but in your case, you guys are, afforded this opportunity?
Well, one, we feel really grateful, both on a personal level and at the organizational level. The fact that this fund is investing in the whole model of what it takes to actually, really grow and scale an organization, it says a lot to the foundation's approach to wanting to ensure that they're not just giving a grant to an organization and not actually investing in the leadership that that organization is going to require in order to take it to that next level. The second thing I'll say is, so often as a leader of color in this space, you're always having to try and prove the worth of your work and making sure that you are proving the worth of your impact, but also having to prove that as a leader, you actually can do this work. And so what I think that this grant, and I think what this partnership is doing for us as an organization and even as leaders, is signaling to other people that there is a model to success in order for us to be able to work collaboratively in order to solve some of our city's largest problems. And I think that the Power Fund in and of itself is a model of success that I hope that the nonprofit sector, both locally in New York City and just nationally, are able to adopt so that other leaders of color can have access to those same opportunities.
Yeah, and I would just jump in and say that we're extremely happy and honored to be part of the Robin Hood family now. Jessica and I, for the last 6 years, have done some tremendous work, and then now we're happy and looking forward to the impact that we'll collectively all make together as America on Tech and Robin Hood, particularly under the Power Fund.
Yeah. So Samantha, I think people out there are asking the question, how did they become a part of the Robin Hood family? What's needed and what's necessary?
So one of the big shifts for us with the Power Fund has been to make sure that we are just looking everywhere for leaders and organizations like Jessica and Evin and America on Tech. We know that the number one barrier that faces leaders of color is just that networking barrier, that just like how life works in every area, it's who you know, it's who gets the phone call when someone picks up the phone to ask for who do you know who does X, Y, or Z. And so what we're being really intentional about is ensuring that we are just getting in conversation with organizations that are doing the most phenomenal work around addressing that intersection of racial injustice and economic injustice in our work, so that we're able to fund and to fuel those leaders on the front lines.
And so for more information, how do people get connected with all of you guys? I want to take the time to do that right now. So Evin and Jessica, America on Tech, how do people get connected?
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to go to americaontech.org. You can also follow us on social media, on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, all at America on Tech.
And similarly, come visit us at robinhood.org. There is a full page about the Power Fund, everything from the research that fueled the work to highlighting the tremendous leaders in this first inaugural group.
Anyone want to add anything before we close our segment?
Just make sure to follow us all. We're looking for definitely looking for making the impact across New York City. As mentioned, and I think you probably heard it very well during this interview, this is something that all of us, and we're just looking forward to continue to fight the good fight here in New York.
Just echo with a big thank you. One of our other Power Fund leaders shared with us that from her perspective, leaders of color being able to tell our own stories about our communities, the needs, the work we do, and the solutions is a critical part of racial justice. And I think that's true. And so just want to say thank you to you for giving the opportunity to share the work and for elevating all of our voices as we move it forward.
Yeah, what we want to do is create a platform that we can elevate voices and be able to share and to bring people who are actually making a difference. And sometimes they don't always get that exposure. It's our privilege and our honor to be able to do that. Samantha, I'll ask you one more question before we get out of here. You talked about the research that was done. Was there anything in the research that actually surprised you with the findings?
I think it really was the data that I shared about that 50%. If you look at any data on poverty in New York City, it's generally snapshot data. What it tells you is that about 19% of New Yorkers are experiencing poverty. And yet you just look over 4 years and see that it's 50% of our city who has spent at least a year in poverty. And it's not only remarkable because it's striking data, it's remarkable because it reshifts the kinds of solutions you need to focus on. It shifts who you imagine when you think about the face of poverty, when you think about the state of poverty. And it really pushes you to understand that we have to change policies. We have to change systems, in addition to supporting direct service and organizations on the front lines, if we're going to see real change.
I want to thank you all for joining us for the Social Justice Forum. Really a great opportunity to hear some great work that's going on. America on Tech, an introduction there, Robin Hood, the Power Fund, great work. Thank you guys for coming and sharing with us here on the Social Justice Forum.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
All righty, and we want you to stay with us. We do have more show. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more coming up right after this.
Listen up, Bronxites. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Are you safely hitting the polls for in-person voting? Or are you voting absentee by mailing in your ballot? New York offers absentee ballots by mail to voters who will be unable to vote in person for any reason. Absentee voting can be confusing, but it's safe and has become more common during coronavirus due to fears of crowding when voting at poll sites. In the primary elections, more than 500,000 ballots were rejected and discarded due to human error. So before you start filling in your ballot, make sure to keep the following in mind. Fill in your bubble selections with a blue or black ink pen only. Never mark any X's or check marks as opposed to filling these bubbles in. Don't forget to sign and date the back of the ballot envelope. And finally, mail your absentee ballot before the deadline November 3rd. You can also drop it off in person at an early voting poll site between October 24th and November 1st, at a poll site on Election Day, November 3rd by 9 p.m., or at the Bronx County Board of Elections office no later than November 3rd by 9 p.m. Stay informed, stay safe, and most importantly, make sure you mail your absentee ballot or wear a mask, remain 6 feet apart, and safely head out to the polls to have your vote count and your voice heard.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community, and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting
to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet, this is Jaime. Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, we're not just voting for president, we're also voting for local representation here in the Bronx. Vote411.org/ballot is a great resource to find out what other races are happening and who is running to represent your community. Simply enter your address, then click Show My Races. You will see a sample ballot displaying the presidential race and other local races taking place in your district. Early voting starts between October 24th to November 1st, and absentee ballots are due no later than November 3rd.
And welcome back to the show. The Restaurant Opportunities Center, better known as ROC United, is a not-for-profit organization that's fighting to improve wages and working conditions for the nation's restaurant workforce. They provide training and professional development opportunities for restaurant workers. An essential pillar in ROC United's mission is to facilitate economic mobility for people in some of the lowest paid occupations in the nation. In addition, they also educate employers on improving the workplace climate by improving tools to advance racial and gender equity and reduce on-the-job harassment of any kind. ROC United is making a variety of efforts to support restaurant workers impacted by COVID-19, as well as the efforts to help through the shutdowns across our country. And joining us now to share a little bit more about it is from the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United is Dr. Sekou Siby. And thank you, Dr. Sekou, for being with us.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you, and much needed. And we talk about what is going on today, COVID-19 having an extreme impact on every business. but particularly that of restaurant workers. So for somebody who doesn't know, give us a little bit about how the restaurant industry has been severely impacted by COVID-19.
Yeah, most of our workers have been affected by COVID-19, number one, through losing their job or through reduced hours. Today, the Labor Department is talking about 25 million people who have lost their job, and a quarter of that number happen to be working in the restaurant industry.
And when we talk about working in the restaurant industry, there are so many jobs that are attached to the restaurant industry. We know the restaurant workers are really a part of that lifeblood, and even to a certain extent, have become essential workers to people who've been really navigating this. But as essential workers themselves, they've also found themselves in the midst of a lot of challenges. What can you tell us about the challenges with restaurant workers?
The challenge of restaurant workers are something that's well known and well according to the Labor Department. Not only that the restaurant industry was one of the fastest industry in the country in producing wages, income, but it has also one of the lowest, 4 of the 10 lowest wages are in the restaurant industry. So these are workers who are people who are working very hard, but who are getting very little out of their hard work. And I can talk from my personal experience. 20 years ago, I was a banquet cook. I was a prep cook at Windows on the Wall. And this situation is very familiar to me because I lost my job as part of 9/11.
Wow. And how have you been able to recover since then?
It had been very difficult at that time. The reason why I understand the situation of COVID-19 today is people losing their job, but because their wages are so low that it is quite impossible for them to have saving. As a result, they lose their job. They rely on the government subsidy to help support their family, and that too is not forthcoming. After the suspension of the $600, the workers are very, very much suffering. And for the most part, especially women, we hear that many of the workers are not going back to work, but the reality is there is a lot of women who have childcare issues and they can't leave the small children alone at home and go to work. So it is quite impossible for them to go to work, even if there is job available when they have kids who are not attended to.
Right. And you're talking a lot about living wages, right? Because that is a major thing that's needed if restaurant workers are going to be able to actually survive post-COVID-19, that living wage. Give us a little bit about the fight for living wage and where things are right now.
Where things are right now, in many places, the federal wage, minimum wage is around $725 an hour. And it is far less for tip wages, which is still $2.13 at the nationwide. So some states have a little, have raised the tip and minimum wage, but for the most part, the tip minimum wage is so low that it is even the industry that rely on customers to pay the wages of the workers, which is understandable. You get hired by a company, we assume that company is responsible for your wages, but in the restaurant industry, that's not the case. A good portion of the workers, 40% of those who earn tips, have to rely on customers to earn the full wages, and we don't think that's right, especially at this moment when they apply for unemployment insurance. They can't because they don't have anything much money because the wages paid by the employer was about $2.13 for the most part in the country.
And I think when you talk about living wage, I mean, that's one important concept that's connected to restaurant workers. But then also I understand the big challenge is also job protection, being able to maintain that job, keep that job, even in times of trouble. So where do things stand with job protection? And what are some of the things that maybe restaurant workers are dealing with that we as the general public are not so familiar with?
Yeah, the restaurant workers have been dealing with many issues. Fair labor standard, for example, has been violated multiple times, meaning we all know the minimum wage. ROC has been engaged in campaign in New York City where we won more than $10 million in back wages, which are wages that people have earned but was not paid until we conducted a lawsuit to force the company to pay those wages. One of the companies was Mario Batali's company, and we settled those at $4 million. So the wage is low, and it is not being paid properly because many employers follow the law road. This is why the mission of the Restaurant Opportunity Centers is to improve wages and working conditions. So it is not enough to raise the wages. It is also important to improve the working condition, because when those wages go up, we have conducted studies in the industry showing that the majority of the high earner positions in the restaurant industry are white male. Why? Because there is no equal access and equal opportunity for those front of the house position where you can make a decent living. And that's wrong.
Yeah, a lot to actually contend with. Talk to me about right now. We know that the numbers are continuing to go up across New York City, across the state, and across the nation. Are you overly concerned with how that's going to impact the restaurant workers, given the fact that there are going to be doors that are going to be closing again simply because of the spike and the surge? How concerned are you with this new surge that's happening and possibly, potentially, what we're considering a second wave?
Yeah, we extremely concerned. I would say back in 2010, we conducted a research showing on health and safety of restaurant workers. From that point, what we said was providing paid sick day is a public health issue. We did not see paying sick day as anything else than public health issue, because we believe that when a worker is sick and it doesn't stay home, it tends to get more people sick. Now, today we are very concerned because most restaurant workers, or many of them, especially the immigrant population, they are in multi-generation housing. So you have a father, the grandparent, and the worker in the same household. So they can protect their family, they can protect themselves. So it is very important that then they are sick, that they find a place where they can, protect themselves and their family. They don't have that luxury, they don't have that option. So the only option available for them is really to get the maximum protection from their workplace. So we have been fighting.
The workplace is certainly the place that's, that's needed to be for sustainability. Looking right now at sustainability, are you hearing a lot of concerns from restaurant workers with regards to PPE, personal protective equipment? Do the workers find that there's enough equipment in the establishments that they're in?
Yeah, we heard concern from many restaurant workers that the protection is not adequate, it is not there. They did not like the concept of New York City opening because of 25% indoor dining. We don't think 25% will bring a significant amount of money, and that's not worth putting anybody's life in danger. So we have heard concern from the workers about it. And we also heard concern about the fact that, many customers, we are in a country where, science is not acknowledged by everybody. Many customers don't even consider COVID-19 as a disease, yet to say they're willing to protect the workers against that disease. So they're having behavior that's not compatible with health and safety condition that the workers want to really protect themselves from. So that has been a contentious, because at the end of the day, the customer is king. The customer desires need to be, executed properly, but it is difficult in these conditions. So our members' work is getting a bit more complicated in this COVID-19 situation.
Share with us about what you have upcoming in terms of dealing with the workers, and also how you stand united with them.
Yeah, we have been fighting for the protection of workers, primarily health and safety concern now, which is we've been fighting for the Essential Workers Bill of Rights, which has a lot of components. It is 2 weeks paid sick day. A study has just shown that the cities and the places where the 2 weeks have been provided to workers, those cities have been able to flatten the curve of COVID-19. So we're not only protecting the workers, we're protecting everybody. So protecting workers is literally protecting everybody. And we still continue to fight for the minimum wage increase because we believe in the fact that a rising tide lifts all the boats, right? So in that condition, when wages go up, it serves everybody. If the economy they need to recover, like it has done after 9/11, like it has done after, because we put workers, we have always put worker front and center. So we will continue to work to fight for it, but we will also continue to fight for the racial and gender equity in the industry, especially all the issues that we want. We don't want to go back to a situation where those workers who want the ability to be in the front of a house and earn higher wages now lose those positions. We've seen that happening after Katrina in New Orleans, where the right to return was not mandated. So many front of the house people of color came back to their job and they were giving, lower earning position instead of the front of the house position. We don't want that. So these are all the things that we've been fighting for.
Right. And any statistics with regards to front of the house? I mean, we do know that people of color are not predominantly seen in the front of the house, but is there any kind of statistics to support like what's going on?
I don't have it in front of me, but we've conducted what we know is that we conducted a study and sent 400 couple, one a person of color and one a white person, and generally the person of color with a better built resume, and the white person was twice as likely to get the job than the person with more qualified people of color. So it means that we need to desegregate the industry, right? And that's a problem that we will have to contend with. Even if the increased minimum wage is not going to solve the problem, if the higher wage positions are not held by women and the people of color.
Well, Dr. Sekou Siby, I got to thank you for coming and sharing. You got to come back to the show. We certainly want to hear more, especially as we get towards the holidays and even into the new year, about how restaurant workers are faring. You were very enlightening to our viewers, and myself and our viewers today, and we'd love to have you come back.
Thank you very much. I live in the Bronx for more than 16 years. So yes, thank you.
Well, glad to have you. A firm Bronx, strong Bronxite, Dr. Sekou Siby. Thank you very much for being with us here. All righty, well, I want to let you know, viewers, we have come to the end of our show today, and certainly we hope that you've enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. We invite you to stay connected to find out about the recablecast of our show, and then also join us next week on Channel 67 of Verizon Files Channel 2133, where you can join the conversation, present your point of view, and then also we encourage you to stay connected to our social media pages at BronxNet TV. And we're going to elevate the discussion next week, everybody. So join us. Darren, Jaime saying take care and God bless. Thank you for watching the Social Justice Forum.